Well, welcome to Unit 3. It's really been fun over the last couple of weeks reading your discussions and your completes. What I'm really probably enjoying the most is your reflections. Reflections to me are so powerful because what they do is they give me some insight as to where you're getting your information, how you're growing. And always remember this one thing. Every week, this isn't just a class you're taking. It's a change in the way we do our modus operandi. I want you to take a little tool from every week, start applying it in your management position or in the position you would like to have. And I want you to constantly try to frame around that. How can I treat my job as an entrepreneurial kind of position? If anything you get from this course, make sure it's how to be creative and how to have an entrepreneurial spirit. A number of years ago, I was speaking at a place called the Defense Technical Information Center up in Washington, D.C. My office manager, Michelle, is just a really wonderful lady, and she always does a super job of getting me to the venue where I'm going to be speaking or training on time. But this was just a horrible connection. There was a lot of business going on in D.C., and leaving from Knoxville, Tennessee up to D.C. just really became a travel nightmare. And Michelle had to go with me because we had to get some contracts finalized for our business. So here we are up near Tyson's Corner in Washington, D.C., and I finished my presentation, and the connection was so lousy. We had 4 hours to mess around before we even had to go to the airport. And I'm a guy, and 4 hours to me is like just insane. I'm thinking I could go see a movie, I could, and I look at Michelle, who just finished her business, and I said, well, what do you want to do? And she said, let's go shopping. I don't like to shop. Shopping to me is, if I had a choice between that and you sticking a real hot stick in my eye, I'd probably go for the stick. I don't like shopping. Now, unfortunately, there's a lady with me who knows me about as good as anybody on this planet. Maybe the only person that knows me better is my wife. But Michelle kind of knows my background, so let me explain it to you. When I was growing up, a little boy in Maryville, Tennessee, my mama, when I started school, took me to the Dollar General store. She bought me 2 pair of blue jeans, 2 shirts, underwear, socks, 1 pair of shoes. That had to do me all year long. One pair of shoes, two pair of blue jeans, 2 shirts, underwear, socks. Now, of course, I had underwear and socks and shoes from the last year, but they probably were pretty worn by then because, I'm a boy and we wear stuff out pretty fast. But I thought everybody's mom, I thought it was like a list they sent from school. When you started gym, you get 2 pair of blue jeans, 2 shirts, underwear, socks, 1 pair of shoes. But I got to school and I discovered something that, kids had more stuff than me. So when you find out that people have more stuff than you, you do one of 2 things. You figure out how to get more stuff, or you become a whiner. Well, I said, when I grow up, I may not have a big house or drive a fancy car or have tons of things, but I'm going to tell you what I'm going to have. I'm going to have shoes. I love shoes. When it comes to shoes, I'm in touch with my feminine side. I love shoes. I probably have more shoes than my wife has and my 2 girls combined. And I know you're probably thinking, yeah, I do. Love shoes. Now, see, the only other person that knows this better than me is Michelle. And because Michelle pays my bills, she sees that I buy a lot of shoes. And she turned to me and said this, well, they probably got shoes at the mall. And I said, let's go shopping. Now, when I made that transition from the Dollar General store to places like Dillard's, that was a huge transition. But today, I'm entering a store I have never been in before, a little store called Neiman Marcus. They have a nickname, as far as I'm concerned. It's Needless Markup. But anyway, I walked in, and this particular day I was wearing a tie. And I like a matching poofy when I wear a tie, that little scarf, that you put in your pocket. I kind of like that. And I didn't have a matching poofy for this, but I walked in, Michelle said, "Oh, look at this. The scarf is beautiful." She sticks it in my pocket. She poofed it up. Oh, it was gorgeous. Same. It was more than the suit. I thought, this is not my kind of store. I'll go get an ice cream. And as I walked almost out of the store, on my left was the shoe department. And right there was men's shoes. And right there, on the corner of the counter, was a pair of handmade Cole Haan Italian leather shoes. Absolutely gorgeous. So I reached, both shoes were there, and I grabbed them and I dropped them to the floor and I shoved my feet in them, and I thought I was in heaven. Socks, soft, supple, absolutely wonderful. I reached down to take off the shoe, and as I flip it over, the sticker is there. $625. Now, where I live, that's called a house payment. That's not a shoe sale. Now, see, I had tons of experience in retail because that's where I came from. And to set you up in this story, I started my life working for a little department store in Knoxville, Tennessee called Miller's. And I worked for what I think was one of the best managers that I ever spent any time with in my life. This man has done more to shape the way I do business, second only to my dad and grandfather. Fred Johnson was a tall, lanky guy. If anybody ever looked more like Abraham Lincoln, it was Fred Johnson. And just like Abraham Lincoln, he was a great talker. He was a great salesperson. He was just my mentor. I came in from lunch one day, and as I walked back from the office, I went up to Fred and I said, "Fred, I like working here. I like the people. I like everything, but I hate our motto." And Mr. Johnson said, "What motto?" I said, "Come on, Fred, the motto's hanging above the personnel department. You can't go in and clock in or clock out without reading it." He says, "Oh, the banner." I said, "Yeah, the banner, our motto." He said, "Oh, Dale, that's a lie." And I thought, my mentor has just said the people I work for lie? And I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, well, you already know what it says. You may have never been there. The customer is always right." You ever been a customer? Were you ever wrong? I'm sometimes surprised when customers are even close to right. But Fred Johnson looked at me that day, and he said something to me, but you have to remember I was a young kid, 18, 19 years old, went in one ear, went out the other. For some of the older guys watching this lecture, I guess the best way to put it is this. When you were 18 years old, what did you think you knew? Everything. And, of course, there was a guy lived at your home, didn't know diddly. What was his name? Dad. And your dad's friends would come up to you, right? Put their arms around you. I guess you want to be just like your dad when you grow up? Don't think so. But here's the really cool part. I got up this morning and I shaved, and I looked in the mirror. Dadgummit, if my dad wasn't looking right back at me. See, we really do become the people we hang around with, so be careful who you hang around with, because you will pick up their traits. I've been fortunate to have hung around some of the most wonderful people on the planet. And Fred Johnson told me what this sign really was all about. In one ear, out the other. You know what? It would take 30 years for me to hear this again, but life will always give you great lessons in twos. So I took those shoes and I thought, $700, come on. Kind of made sure I didn't sweat them or anything. Put them back up on the counter. Was getting ready to leave to go get some ice cream. Young salesman sees me. Sir, tell me those shoes were in your size. Those shoes were in my size. You are a lucky man. Of course, I'm thinking I ain't $700 lucky. No, you're a lucky man because, see, those shoes are the last pair I have. They're the most popular style, most popular color. I'm getting ready to mark them down to $69.95. Now, a $700 pair of shoes for $70, I'm all over that. So I dropped them, put them back on for another test drive. And that's when he knew I was not a Neiman Marcus shopper. I said, would it be okay if I just wear them out? Now, he didn't say anything, but in his mind, I'm sure he was going, you shop at the Walmart, don't you, big dog? He said, you know what? Wear those shoes home. It'll give you an opportunity to break them in. Why don't you give me your shoes, and I'll ship your old shoes home for you? Now, I got a real sense of humor. I'm thinking every postal clerk between here and Harriman, Tennessee is going, somebody shipping a hamster, and it died in this box. Now, fast forward 6 weeks. 6 weeks from my experience of being in Neiman Marcus, buying those shoes that day. Fast forward 6 weeks. Same town, same client, same horrible layover. Michelle and I are both there again. Michelle was taking contracts back to where we had signed them before. And she said, you want to go shopping? I said, let's go to Neiman's. No sales that day. Started to walk right out the store again. And I heard a voice. Dr. Henry. Now I want you to stop just for a second. I want you to kind of reflect back on what we're talking about here, creativity, entrepreneurism. What can you do where you are planted right now? Not what can you do by changing jobs, by going to another company, by having a new vision, by all these things that we love to do. What can you do right now where you are this second that will change your leadership role? Now, let's stop the story right there. 6 weeks later, this guy has just said hi to me. There's a great proverb story, you can call it whatever you want, about a guy, a farmer in Africa, who inherited a farm from his family, but he was not a farmer. All he dreamed about was going out and finding diamonds. He wanted to be a diamond miner. Every morning he got up and he hated the fact he was where he was in his life. He got trapped into this and he got married and he had children and he just wanted to be an adventurer. So on this farm that he lived on was hundreds of these little streams. It was a great farm for growing things, but he would go out and he would walk through these streams and he would think about how wonderful it would be to be out in Africa looking for diamonds. And as he would walk through these streams, there were all these quartz deposits on his farm, and he would pick up these quartz deposits. He would dream that they were diamonds he was finding. It kept his sanity. He'd bring them home and he'd set them up on the hearth of his home. And through some miracle, he found a guy that wanted to buy his farm. Moved his family into the city. Told his family that he was going to go out and he was going to find his fortune. 3 months traveling turned into 3 years, which turned into 6 years. Never found a single diamond, and in a fit of despondency of all the time he had lost with his family and searching for something that wasn't there, he threw himself into a stream and drowned. Sad story. But I don't know what generation you're from, but the generation I'm from, watch movies a lot of times, and on the bottom of the thing, it said, meanwhile, back at the farm, let's go back to the farm. The guy that bought the farm, he turned out to be a really good farmer, and he had the county extension agent, our course, equivalent to the county extension agent, came over to give him some advice on what minerals to use to best grow corn on his farm, walked into his living room, looked up on the hearth where the owner before him had placed the quartz deposits that he thought were quartz. And the county extension agent almost lost his mind, because on the hearth of his farm were 5 of the largest diamonds that were ever found on the African continent. You see, the farmer who had left everything to go hunt diamonds had them under his feet the whole time. That's why you need to think creatively and as an entrepreneur. The best diamonds you'll ever mine, the best job you will ever have will be found in the job that you have right now. I don't care who you work with or who you work for. I've heard all the excuses. I could be successful if it weren't for these people. I could be successful if it wasn't for my boss. You can be successful anywhere if you use creativity, entrepreneurial spirit. It's 6 weeks later. This guy remembered my name. I was thrilled. I couldn't believe it. He came over to me and he looked at my shoes. He said, "Hey, I like your shoes. I love these shoes." He said, "Oh, those shoes are so cool. Have you had them polished yet?" I said, "Man, you're not going to believe this. I was in the National Airport this morning, and they were polishing them, but they were polishing the old-fashioned way, where the guy puts the polish on with his finger, and he was polishing and buffing, and, it was really the first time I got a chance to really look at these shoes on my feet because they were up on the stand, and I was looking, and, when you're talking about something, you tend to look at it, and I was down, and he was polishing. I noticed that the right shoe was just a little bit different colored from the left shoe, and that's because they were handmade, and I look up, and he's gone. You know how really stupid you feel, like you've been talking to yourself for the last 5 minutes and mothers are pulling children out of their way because they think you're kind of weird? And then all of a sudden he comes out with a box under his arm. Now, I wear glasses for little things like seeing, but I could see the price tag because, Neiman Marcus are not afraid of their price tags. And on the end of this box, a price tag said $829, and this man said this to me: "I am so sorry. You see, I know what's happened to your shoes." And I go, "I love these shoes." He said, "No, I know you love your shoes. But I bet when we take those shoes off your feet and we look at the lot numbers, the 2 lot numbers are different. See, somebody put one shoe in a wrong box, and you have a mismatched pair of shoes, and I must insist that we exchange shoes." And I start doing the math, $70 from $800, and I'm going, I like the mismatched shoes. No one knows but me. And he said, "I think you misunderstand, Dr. Henry. I'm not saying you need to pay the difference. I'm saying we exchange evenly a $60 pair of shoes for an $800 pair of shoes." And I said, "Why?" And this really goes back to our previous chapter on integrity. He said, "I'll know, and you'll know." I mean, come on, won't that affect the way you like these shoes? Wouldn't it be nice to know that you got a great pair of shoes for a great price versus a pair of mismatched shoes? Besides that, Dr. Henry, if you were to go somewhere else and mention this in Neiman Marcus, I could lose my job if they knew I knew. Because this is Neiman Marcus. We don't sell secondhand goods. Oh, our prices are high. I know that. But you pay for the quality. But here's what you really need to hear. And oh my goodness. He took me back to being an 18-year-old kid, standing in Miller's department store with my mentor, Fred Johnson, because this is what he said. This is Neiman Marcus. And at Neiman Marcus, the customer is always served. Not right, not wrong, not the best, not number one, served. You want to see your field of diamonds? You want to see how you can best serve people and really manage and lead? You got to serve. You got to serve the customer. It's the first step and last step of any successful journey in management and leadership. The customer is always served. In Unit 4, we're going to be talking a lot about change and about training. And a lot of you may think that this is going to veer off the path of what we're talking about in leadership. It is not. what I'm trying to do is work on the same vein of making you more of an entrepreneurial spirit, giving you more options where you are right now and how I can help you do that. I go to D.C. a lot. And those of you that are taking this class, you really haven't had an opportunity to meet me probably or know me. So let me just tell you a little bit about Dale Henry. I spent 27 years in the Tennessee Air National Guard, and I love airplanes. I have my own. It's a great little plane. It's a 700 Aerostar 700P, super aircraft, fast, efficient. My favorite museum in Washington, D.C. is the Aeronautics Museum. I love the Aeronautics Museum. It's great. And given the opportunity, if I'm in D.C., I will go to the Aeronautics Museum. And to wrap up this unit, let me just tell you that this particular day I went to the Aeronautics Museum to get a look at some new static displays. I get their magazine. So after I got done with my morning session, was going to be speaking in an afternoon session, I jumped in the cab. I went over to the Aeronautics Museum, and I went inside with my book. I was going to see some static displays, and there must have been 1,000 kids there. And I go, well, that's not happening. And I thought, but I'll get to see a couple of static displays, and I'll still get. But when I walked in to this big rotunda there at the Aeronautics Museum, I realized that these kids weren't there at a tour. These kids were there to participate in the Washington, D.C. 3rd grade airplane making contest. I'm a teacher. I'm a lot of things, but I'm a teacher. And I thought, this place can wait. This is too awesome to pass up. There must have been 500-600 people in that rotunda watching 13 kids do an airplane making contest. Now, all of us in our heads carry what I call an airplane. Oh, I can say this to you right now. Get out a sheet of paper, fold your favorite airplane. And you know what you do? You start folding because this airplane's in your brain. There's a picture of it there. You carry it there. You've been making this airplane ever since you were in study hall in high school. Some of us have perfected it. And we would start folding and creasing and bending and manipulating this paper into what would become an airplane. I've done it. You've done it. We've both done it thousands of times. So I'm standing there watching these 13 third graders, these 9-year-old children. And you could take a 2x4 and lay it across all of their heads. It would have touched every boy's head. No girls this year for some reason. Every boy's head except for one, the 12th kid. He was like a head shorter than all the rest. Thick glasses. And everybody was standing there with their airplane in their hand, perched to participate in this contest. Now, I didn't get there in time to hear the rules, but the rules had something to do with standing on footy marks. You had to stand on the footy marks. You had to take your plane and to throw it right underneath the Wright brothers' plane there in that rotunda was obviously a bullseye that a man had made because it was made out of duct tape. And it was a big circles turning into smaller circles, and of course there was a bullseye which was painted red. And the objective was to throw that airplane, hit it into the bullseye. And all 13 of these boys knew the rules. And I'm standing there watching them, and one by one they walk up this plane they had manipulated, they had folded, and they would throw that plane into the bullseye. Now, it would have been difficult standing there watching this if you did not notice the 12th child. Shorter than the rest, thick glasses, of course. But all the other boys were holding a plane. He was holding a box. A cardboard box. And I'm thinking, probably has an interesting design. Doesn't want anybody else to see it. Kind of hiding it from everybody. And finally, this young man got up. It was his turn. He was the 12th kid. He set his box down. Unlike all the other children, he did not look down. He did not make sure his feet were exactly in the footy marks. He didn't even look down. He set his box down. And in this large auditorium, this rotunda of the Air and Space Museum, where 600 people were all talking with that golf talking, just rumble. He started on this side of the room, and very quietly and very methodically, he looked into every person's eye in that room. And when he got to this side, let me show you what I heard. Silence. And when he had that silence, he gave a speech that would have made John F. Kennedy, that would have made every leader in this country. I guarantee you that anyone who has ever delivered a presentation would love to have had this kind of power. He looked at the people in that rotunda in total silence and said this: we all have a dream. The men who designed that aircraft had a dream, and they ended up changing the world. Many of us are just one person, and we believe we can't do that. But ladies and gentlemen, this world is all about leadership, all about managing our resources smartly. I'm standing there going, ding, 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 ding. I haven't even seen this kid's plane. He wins. And then he opened up his box. He took out a very unique airplane. Looked like a cylinder. Starting the next lesson, I'll actually start my lesson with it. And he brought it out, and had I been standing next to you, I would have leaned over to you and I would have said this: that's not a plane. Somebody should have told him. It's a cup with the bottom took out. And he took this plane and he threw 5 of them into the center of the circle. 4 of his planes hit previous planes he threw before. Nobody else's plane was in the center of the circle. There was a guard holding the door to keep the air from coming through the building. He looked at the guard, asked the guard to open the door. The lady who was organizing the contest said that would be okay, and he threw one of these planes right out. Now, I started feeling sorry for the 13th child, who obviously was not going to win this contest. The winner had already been found. I just wanted to go up, put my arm around him and say, this wasn't your day, son. But this little boy, Eddie Hill, won the airplane making contest that day. Got a 4-year scholarship to any college he wanted to go to. Pretty nice prize for building an airplane. But I was almost late for my presentation. I was almost late for my presentation because I wanted to make this airplane. And as I said, I'll show it to you at the beginning of the next lesson unit. But an unusual thing has happened to me. I've been making the same airplane since I was in grade school. I can't make that airplane anymore. Oh, I still know how, but I choose not to. I make Eddie Hill's airplane because he has changed the way I see that little small concept. That's what this course is all about. You get to see this really nice blend of what management looks like to the author of your textbook. You get to see what management looks like from my perspective in leadership. You get to see what the perspective of the students who are taking this course with you through your discussions every week. And if you can leave from beginning this course to ending this course and be exactly the same person, making your airplane exactly the same way, you haven't been paying attention. It's all about changing. It's all about paradigms. It's all about creativity. It's all about how to become a better entrepreneur. Customer. It's always served. See you next unit. Take care. Bye.